I never can say goodbye. No, 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 no. All right, let's get this work. Hey there, tone chasers and circuit freaks. Welcome back to Soundwaves Unplugged, where we plug into the history of the gear that changed music forever. I'm Aaron Ross, and today we're cranking the volume all the way to 11 as we explore one of the more important and explosive innovations in music history, the electric amplifier. From dusty honky-tonks to stadium shaking under power chords, amps gave the electric guitar its voice and gave musicians the power to melt faces. But this isn't just the story of louder is better. It's a tale of invention, obsession, and a little bit of electrical madness. So strap in, because we're all about to blow a fuse. Let's rewind to the 1920s. Back then, guitars were still acoustic and mostly background players. More rhythm than riff. But there was a problem. Bands were getting louder, horn sections, drums, pianos, and the poor guitar couldn't keep up. Guitarists were like, can anyone hear me? And the answer was a resounding nope. Enter George Beauchamp and Adolphe Rickenbacker, two names every musician should know. In 1931, these guys teamed up to create what is considered the first commercially viable electric guitar, the Rickenbacker frying pan. But here's the twist, without an amp. The frying pan was just a weird-looking lap steel with a pickup. So they built one, a primitive box of tubes and wire. It barely worked, and probably hummed louder than the guitar itself, but it was a start. The first amps were basically radio circuits in wooden boxes, usually 3 to 5 watts with a single speaker. Early brands like Valco and Electric String built these for Hawaiian guitarists and Western swing players. These amps weren't built for distortion, they were built not to explode, and they almost did anyway.
Guys,
The true explosion came in the 1940s when Leo Fender showed up with the Fender Princeton and later the Fender Deluxe. These amps were simple, clean, and relatively reliable. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Jazz and country players adapted the first, but as soon as guitarists realized you can crank these amps and get that beautiful, gritty breakup, well, then distortion was born. This is where things get juicy. In the early 1950s, rock and roll guitars started doing something amp designers never expected. They abused their gear. They cranked the volume past safe levels, blew the tubes, fired transformers, and loved every second of it. Distortion, as it turns out, was an accident. Tube amps weren't designed to distort. They were supposed to stay clean. But players like Willie Kizart, who recorded Rocket 88 in 1951 with a broken amp, accidentally pioneered the dirty guitar tone that would define rock. Fender dominated the 1950s with amps like the Bassman, a 4x10 beast originally designed for bass, but quickly adopted by guitarists for its fat, warm tone. But the crown jewel, the 1959 Tweed Bassman, widely considered the blueprint for the modern guitar amp. This amp would later inspire a British kid named Jim Marshall, who reverse engineered it in 1960 and created a monster. Now we get to the British side of the story. While Leo Fender was ruling California, Jim Marshall was running a drum shop in London. His customers, guys like Pete Townsend and Richie Blackmore, kept asking him for amps with more power and more gain. So, in 1962, Jim and his team built the first Marshall JTM-45 based on the Fender Bassman circuit, but hotter, nastier, and way more aggressive. That was the Big Bang. By 1965, Marshall had created the 100-watt super lead known as the Plexi and paired it with towering 4x12 speaker cabinets. The Marshall stack was born. It was more than an amp. It was a monument to volume. Townsend used it to annihilate audiences. Hendrix made them scream at Woodstock. And by the 1970s, no rock stage was complete without a wall of Marshalls threatening to destroy your eardrums. And Marshall wasn't alone. Over in the UK, Vox had created the AC-30, a jangly chime-filled amp behind the Beatles and Queen, and the US Mesa Boogie arrived in the 1970s with high-gain boutique amps that powered Santana, Metallica, and countless others. In the 1980s, solid-state amps entered the scene. Instead of tubes, they used transistors, cheaper, lighter, and far less prone to catching fire. Amps like the Roland Jazz Chorus became studio staples, especially for clean tones. But to purists, solid state was heresy. It didn't feel the same. It didn't respond like tubes. It was like replacing your dog with a Roomba. Fast forward to the 2000s, and now we've got digital modeling amps like Line 6 Fractal and Kemper that can emulate dozens of legendary tones at the push of a button. Even purists are starting to cave because now the fake tube tone sounds so close to the real thing, you almost feel guilty for enjoying it.
Don't look at me!
But still, in dive bars and arenas, you'll see a beat-up old Marshall head glowing red, tubes cooking, speakers rattling, because deep down we know. It's not just about tone. It's about feeling the air move when you hit a G chord. It's about volume that vibrates your rib cage, and no digital plugin can ever replace that. So there you have it. The electrifying journey of the amp, from cobbled together radio guts in the 1930s to modern software-powered tone machines. Amps didn't just amplify sound, they amplified the attitude, the swagger, the soul of rock and roll. Thanks for watching Soundwaves Unplugged. In our next episode, we're dialing into one of the weirdest instruments ever invented. No strings, no keys, no touching at all. That's right, we're talking about the theremin. Until then, keep rocking. Keep rewiring history, and as always, stay unplugged. I think we did it. What was that? 10? 10? We're getting better at this.